you need to start to consider, to think about. And so I got across to you a bunch of the basics. There's anybody here heard of the term Qi? Qi?
Qi, yes. We get it on Qigong.
Or Qigong, yeah. This is Qi. So anybody want to offer me an explanation of what Qi means?
Life force or energy?
Energy, yes.
Okay. Anything else? Good. So that's the usual translation of Qi. But actually, life force Qi is called Yuan Qi. And then we have Qi that comes from the ground, from the earth, which is called De Qi. And we also have Qi that comes from the sky or the heaven, which is called Tian Qi. So Tian is heaven or sky, De is ground, and Yuan is, I can't translate that, but Yuan Qi relates to this sort of vital force or vital energy. Qi, I've done a bit of research, and Dr. Shen did a load of research on it, because China being such a big place and having so many people, they all have their own interpretation of this word. So not only is it impossible to translate to English, they're struggling to understand it, although they won't admit it, in China. So the best translation that I've come up with for Qi is stuff.
Stuff, oh yes. Stuff.
Anything, matter. In fact, beyond matter, stuff. So we have De Qi, we have Yuan Qi, and I'm sort of pointing at my belly, and I'm pointing at the ground for De Qi, and then we have Tian Qi. And these are sort of like the three major components that we were working with last week without realizing it really. We're not sort of doing anything specific to do with Qi, we're just doing some physical exercise. There's another Qi that we need to understand some of the effects that you might get from these exercises. There was a lady last week who was with us, and she's not with us this week, and I probably understand why, who had quite a, almost, you might call it an abreaction. It's not abnormal at all, but it's quite a strong reaction. So these exercises for some people can seem like we're not doing a lot, but the response can be quite strong. And the reason is because just that initial stance, the Wuxi stance, the Wu Qi stance that we begin with, you are setting your body up to deal with a type of Qi that we call Bin Qi. And again, it's a catch-all for a whole bunch of different things. And it comes from the model that Dr. Shen developed, which he calls the Wu Qi model. And Bin Qi is essentially anything that's in your body that's toxic, it's poisonous. And the body produces this stuff. We have to, you know, we eat and digest food, we process germs, you know, bacteria and viruses. We're constantly flushing out toxins from the body in the usual way. But sometimes some of the toxins can get stuck in different parts of the body, particularly in the spine. So a reason, not the reason, but a reason we spend a lot of time working on the spine and trying to separate the vertebral bodies. By separating these vertebral bodies and the joints, for example, of the fingers, and make the spaces between your bones bigger, it frees up stuff. I'm going to use the word stuff that's stuck there. And for some of us, we're going to have stuff stuck all over the place. Some of us, we're going to have stuff stuck in particular places. And what's interesting for me is to try to gain an understanding of if there is a pattern with Parkinson's of a particular part of the body that stuff is stuck in. A common reaction that I can get, about a quarter of the people that play Tai Chi with me will begin to feel dizzy or nauseous or tired or faint, actually. You can get that feeling. It's like as if either you've got low blood sugar or you've got low blood pressure. That's the kind of feeling you get. And that happens because you've got a lot of stuff in your head. We can have, especially if you spend a lot of time thinking, So if you've got a career as a scientist or something like that, where you're doing a lot of stuff in the head, or if you're an accountant or something like that, you've got a busy brain, then you can get a lot of stuff stuck there, particularly if you don't have a very good posture in the neck. As soon as we start doing this work with Wu Ji stance, one of the key things that we're working on is the neck. All you have to do is change that posture, and all of a sudden this stuff starts flushing out, starts flowing out, and you don't notice it. So it might be happening for you, but some people notice it because it creates a feeling of low blood pressure or low blood sugar, and you can start feeling woozy. That was the word I was looking for. If you get that feeling, please sit down before you fall over. Yeah, and just sit with the backs of the hands resting on the thighs, and trying to just keep your spine in a good posture. And wait till it subsides, and when you're ready, come back and join in the exercises again. And if it starts again, I'll go and sit down again. And do let me know, and I'll give you some guidance on things that you can do rather than just sitting there. Okay. So I think that was an important thing to mention that I should have probably mentioned last week. But I didn't really consider it because different people get different responses, and it wasn't something that I thought would be something that any of you would have, but you might get it. It also can be caused by the other end of the spine. So this area here, we're opening that. Because we're doing this forward lean in the hips, which we'll be doing in a minute, yeah, we're opening that part of the spine, and the area around it starting to expand and open. And this is connected with the kidneys and the adrenal glands. So as you start to open that and bring the body weight out of it and forwards into the abs, into the abdominal muscles, all of a sudden you are deactivating your sympathetic nervous system. Because we've got all this pressure on the adrenals, the sympathetic nervous system tends to be active. Not overactive necessarily, but chronically active, and it shouldn't be. As soon as we bring that forwards, that changes our energy system, and again you can start to feel a bit woozy because of that change. You may or may not want to know why, but I wanted to let you know that this is a normal response that you can get, that you may not get it, you probably won't, hopefully, but if you do, it's normal. Just sit down before you fall over. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay, shall we get started then? I'll just switch cameras. Okay, so get yourself into a good space, ideally so that I can see at least part of you. I've tried to make it so that you can see me from head to toe, because we begin with the feet, if you remember. So we're going to start with the feet parallel and they're shoulder width apart, roughly shoulder width apart. That's the first bit. Let's just get that right. And then we're going to just do whatever we need to do. It's usually in the ankles, just a little movement forwards to center the body weight on the balls of the feet. Once the body weight's on the balls of the feet, we've got nice anchor points to lift the toes up. So lifting the toes up off the ground and then just elongating them gently. So it's not a vigorous stretch, it's just a gentle opening as best you can. So, there's a number of things that's going on here, but we're reconnecting the brain with the toes, with the muscles in the feet. So we're getting a little bit more precise with how you move the feet around. And then before you get too tired of that, we're going to place the toes down 2 by 2, starting with the big toes and going right the way around to the little toes, so that they're nicely secure on the ground, but not clawing it. So it's just a little stretch in the toes, and you're just making sure that making a good connection with the ground. And then you follow that through by going around the outside edge of the feet. I'm not sure if my finger pointing is helping you, but I'm just trying to really explain what's going on or what you should be feeling in the feet until it gets through into the heel, so that you've got everything, every part of your foot that should be in contact with the floor is, and then every part of your foot that shouldn't be isn't, hopefully, because you've got this gentle stretch in the feet. It's created a bit of structure for you. The reason we do that is because the next thing you want to do is soften the ankles, soften the knees, and soften the hips. So there's a tendency to soften the feet as well, but try not to. Just try and keep that structure there. So now we have yin in the legs. We're going to move the pelvis backwards so that the weight comes out of the balls of the feet momentarily and into the heels, and then lean forwards from the hips at the same time as stretching the spine, bringing the weight forwards back into the balls of the feet again by leaning forwards from the hips. Keeping the shoulders soft, keeping the arms soft and the fingers soft, so that they just hang there. And you know, if you've got a reasonably good forward lean, by that I mean it's not too far forwards and it's far enough forwards, because the hands are just in front of the hip joints or thereabouts. So the backs of hands are sort of facing forwards, the palms are facing backwards normally when we're doing this. And then we're just going to bring the awareness into the spine. Pay a bit of attention to that. So first of all, I'd like you to notice that because you soften the legs, gravity has more of a hold on your pelvis. So you should be feeling a little bit of a downwards pull on the pelvis. That's good, because we can oppose that using the muscles in the spine, and really you're just placing your awareness in the head and trying to lift the head up at the same time as keeping the legs soft. So we've got this gentle pull on the spine, just opening just a tiny, tiny little amount each vertebral body, separating them from one another. Bringing the head back on top of the shoulders. It's when we do this that we may start to feel a bit woozy. Bringing the head back on top of the shoulders, keeping that stretch in the spine. Then we're going to pay a little bit of extra attention on the spine. First of all, I'd like you to, as best you can, try and stretch the front of the spine. So going from the bottom of the belly, inside the pelvic cavity, just lifting all the way up through to the top of the head if you can. Not worrying about the back of the spine just yet. But when you've got there, then just keeping the head as high as it is and bringing the chin down slightly so it stretches the back of the neck, and just let that stretch follow through right the way down the back of the spine. Now that you've done this, just check that the head is back on top of the shoulders still. You should have quite a good stretch in the spine. The bit that will be closed off will be in the chest area, because this tends to lift the chest up. So you may remember we're softening down the chest as well, whilst keeping the spine stretched. And then you should have a good stretch right the way down the full length of the spine. This is like the nub of what we do, really. This is it. All the other stuff is kind of gravy, really. It's more than that, but from a beginner's perspective, you're getting maximum benefit from just standing like this, because we've opened the spine, we've connected with the ground. So, as I said last week, just go with the model. Yeah, this is a model that we're working to. This idea of chi flowing in from the ground. We've connected with the ground. We'll worry about the belly later, but the belly is pumping that chi. And then stagnant chi, the bad stuff that's stuck in various parts of the body, but in particular, the head and the spine, that's starting to flow out now. It's starting to flow out. Where does it flow out to? It goes to the tips of the fingers and the tips of the toes. Okay, so now we're going to add a bit of gravy, shall we? Yeah, because we can't stand here like this all day. It'll get boring, won't it? But in China, in the 19th century, when people were seriously training to be Tai Chi fighters, they would have to spend probably about 6 months learning this stance and not doing anything else until they got it right. But we can't do that. I think it makes more sense for us to add extra stuff onto it to keep us interested. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen off the hip joints. That's why I'm patting the hip joints. If you remember, just by doing this, so keeping everything as it is in this sort of Wu-Ji stance that we're doing, Wu-Ji posture, but we are pivoting the pelvis. We're rotating it one way until we hit the end stops for the hips, and then rotating the other way. Key thing to remember is your knees must be over the toes. Yeah, so the knees are sort of coming backwards and forwards like that, rather than folding in. If it folds in, you're putting undue pressure on the sides of the knees, which isn't going to do you a lot of good. So try and keep the knee pointing in the same direction as the toe. You'll notice that you'll feel the knees then to apply extra opening force in the hip. So one hip is closing, the other hip is opening, and then vice versa. So this hip's open, this one's closed. Closed, open. Yeah? Yin and yang again. So we have this yin and yang thing going on, and it's always moving, it's constantly changing. So yin and yang is an interesting philosophy, but actually just applying it practically to what we're doing really, what we're doing here. And it's quite a useful tool to do that, because it's quite simple to think about and then consider exactly what should be going on in the body. There we are. So this exercise really is just about loosening off the hip joints a little bit, getting things warmed up. Is everybody okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I should say is remember that it's about the pelvis, not the shoulders. Yeah. So if you're standing here with the pelvis still and you're moving your shoulders, that may actually be quite a useful and interesting exercise, but it's not what we're doing. We're turning the pelvis. It has to be the pelvis. If you can't turn the pelvis very far, that's fine. That's okay. You don't have to hide it by turning the shoulders further. Just go with what you can do. It's all okay. Now, there's all sorts of stuff that we can pile onto this, but it's not going to work over Zoom. So one day, hopefully, I may see some of you in person and we can do those extra bits on top. But over Zoom, this is about the best that we can do, but it's actually good enough, really, for what we're doing. It's good enough. Personally, I find this really relaxing. It kind of is almost like rocking yourself a little bit, I think. I find it quite comforting. So if you're ever feeling a bit anxious, then just get yourself into Wu-Ji and do this, and you'll probably feel a little bit better afterwards. Okay, the next thing, hopefully, that you'll remember from last week is the shaking out. And hopefully you can understand why we're shaking out a little bit better now, because we're moving this bin chi into the hands and the feet. So we want to make sure it's properly out. So just pausing, trying to keep yourself as good as possible in Wu-Ji, but round the shoulders forwards to bring the arms forwards in front of the midline of the body so that they cross. And then use the shoulders with the arms fairly relaxed. Just shake the hands out. So some examples of bin chi that might be tangible to us, shall I say, you know, something that you go, oh right, okay, that's an example of it, would be lactic acid. So if you've been exercising really heavily, as I guess Martin will be doing on Tuesday when he does the intense exercise, you might get some lactic acid being produced in your muscles. Yeah, that would be an example of bin chi being stuck in your body. And you'll feel it when you're shifting it out because it's really quite painful. Okay, the same applies to the feet. If you're not good at standing on one leg, find something secure that you can just touch so that you don't fall over. Then stand on one leg, and with the other leg, just stretch it down the back from the bum right the way through to the heel, lifting the toes up slightly. So you're kind of like stretching and pushing through the heel into the ground. It's just ever so slightly off the ground, about half an inch or something like that. Once you get that stretch, then jiggle up and down out out of the hip joint as best as you can. So the stretch is the key thing. The vibration is an added extra bonus. So, you know, when you shake your hands out, let's say you've got some lactic acid in the forearms. When you shake your hands out, you're not going to get lactic acid coming out your fingers. What happens is it brings it down to the fingers, and then it gets broken down and taken back into the body, where it's dealt with by the liver and kidneys. Make sure you do the same on both sides. Okay, so we warmed up the hips. Last week, we didn't do an awful lot with the shoulders. I'm going to try something with you. Let's see how you get on with it. So before I tell you about this exercise, I just want to remind you that this isn't a competition. You don't have to get it exactly like me. What we're going to be doing basically is loosening off the shoulders. So that will involve stretching the arms and rotating the shoulder joints gently. We're going to be rotating the shoulder joints in opposite directions. And at the same time, we're going to carry on doing this pelvis thing. Yeah, so there's a bit of coordination going on for you. Okay, so hopefully you've all got ceilings high enough for you to just breathe in and stretch the arms up. I'm just touching my ceiling. But I'm quite tall, so, you know. And actually my ceiling isn't that low, but it's fairly low. So if you are touching the ceiling, the trick is to get a bit more stretch in the arms. It's just to soften the legs down a little bit more, so you've got a bit more space at the top there. Okay, so now we've got that stretch, just gentle opening, not major. Start doing the hip exercise, but at the same time, rotating the arms in opposite directions in the shoulder joints. Yeah. So if I wasn't turning my hips, I'd just be doing this. But turn the hips as well, because actually it makes it feel easier, I find. So we're still doing the same thing as we were doing before with the hips, but we're rotating the shoulder joints and stretching the arms. Okay, so as I said, don't worry about if what you're doing doesn't feel like it's what I'm doing. It doesn't matter. All you need to know, or all you need to be sure of, is that your arms are stretching gently and your shoulders are moving. Yeah, so you're just rotating in the shoulder joints. If you've got any rotator cuff problems or anything like that, just take it steady. And if it's scrunching, just avoid the scrunchy bits. Again, I'd sort of take it a little bit further than that if I was with you in person, because I could see what the problem was. But because I can't, I'm just saying, just go cautiously with it. Now, for those of you that have managed to get this right, I'm going to throw an extra cat amongst the pigeons, as we say. So when you get to the bottom next time, with your fingers pointing down, just pause for a moment, and then go in the opposite direction. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so the next time you get to the bottom, just pause there. Just pause there. Back into Uji. Then round the shoulders forward so the arms cross through the middle of the body again, and shake. So what are we doing here? We're stretching gently. We're freeing up major joints. So we've freed up the joints that we would call the spine. We've freed up the joints that we call the hips. And we've freed up the shoulder joints a little bit now as well, and warmed them up. Again, same with the feet. So stretching down the back of the leg from the bum through to the heel, and then jiggle it a bit. And then the same on the other side. Is everybody okay? Give me a thumbs up if I, yeah, good. Good. Okay. Last week I gave you some homework to do, didn't I? How did you get on with that? The walking. Did anybody have a go at it?
I did, I tried.
How did you get on?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I mean, I probably, yeah, dread to think what I look like, but thinking about your weight into your foot that you stand, I mean, I was thinking, I should have known this my whole life because I was always quite clumsy even before Parkinson's.
Yeah.
You know, that do something before you put all the weight onto the one foot. And if you think about that all the time, it really improves your balance.
Yeah, it does.
I just don't know why you don't know this now, you know, not instinctively.
Well, I think the thing is, if you think about it all the time, at some point it does become instinctive. It's like learning to drive a car or whatever. You know, we've done that as an adult, and it does become part of muscle memory, doesn't it? You don't have to think about what you're doing anymore. But maybe to begin with, you do. And actually, you're saying about you think that, you know, you're not sure how you looked. Maybe you looked a bit funny to other people. I do find that some of these exercises work really well at shortening the supermarket queue in front of you. Although I guess that's less of a problem for us because we're all probably using online shopping these days. But, I think I am sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Aware that this is probably a really important exercise for you guys. I think this is one that you really need to work with. And so I think we'll do it again today, and I will add a little bit to it for you. Yeah, so that we're not just doing the same thing over and over again. We can make it a little bit more interesting. So to begin with, we'll just carry on doing the foot in front, one foot in front of the other, and then we'll add something else into that so that we're working another part of the body at the same time. Okay, so just to make sure that we're all clear what I'm talking about, I shall explain it to you again. I'm just going to move my laptop out of the way, and I hope that no leads drop out. If I disappear, you know what's happened. I think that's going to be okay. So try and find a space that you've got where you can move forwards a bit, you know, the furthest that you can move forwards, really. And then just stand with the feet shoulder width apart. And just, I suppose, just casually go into Wu-Chi rather than the sort of detailed thing that we did at the start. And then shift your weight across into your right foot. So just move the weight into the right foot. So the right foot has all of your weight. And then when it's got all of your weight, and only then, lift the left foot up and just put it forwards so that the heel is roughly level with the ends of your toes. And then place it down on the ground. So we're going to go actually backwards a step, if you'll pardon the pun with this, because I just got you to walk normally last week. But this time I'm being a bit more precise, and I'm saying, well, actually, I just want you to put your foot forward just a bit. Yeah, so it's just 1 foot length ahead. Shift the weight forwards into the left foot until it's got all of your weight in it. Once you've got all of your weight in it, take the weight off the right foot and quickly place it down again, so that the heel is just in front of the toes. Not like that, by the way. It's still, they're still shoulder width apart. It's just that in terms of direction forwards, it's just in front of the toes of the other foot. Then shift the weight forwards across into the right foot until you can take the left foot off the ground because there's no weight in it, and then you move that forwards and place it down, and then shift the weight forwards. That's not me. when you get to the end of the length of area that you've got, just turn around and come back the other way. So I apologise for turning my back to you, but I want to join in with you. I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing here. So it's an extraordinarily simple exercise, isn't it, actually, when you think about it? And almost to the point where you think, well, should we be bothering doing this at all? But I think we should, because I think there's some things to rediscover here by doing this. So really, when Garija, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Garija, but when Garija said that you know, after you'd had your diagnosis, you found that you were walking like a shuffle. Well, I wonder if, you know, we can just push the envelope slightly with that and go, okay, well, let's work through this. Let's see if we can get the weight in one foot, lift the other foot off the ground and move it forwards some distance and shift the weight across. And just so that we're breaking this down, this movement down, and consciously thinking about it, so that we can retrain the brain, we can retrain the motor cortex, we can develop new connections from the motor cortex through to our muscles, so that we can commit this to muscle memory. And then hopefully, gradually, over time, we can develop a much better gait, much better walk. So from the perspective of Parkinson's, this is really good, really beneficial. But also from the perspective of Tai Chi, for Tai Chi sake, this is really good because, you know, I was going to say it's all about stepping. It's not all about stepping, but stepping is such a fundamental part of it. Standing on one foot, moving the other foot around. Okay, you might want to go like that perhaps, or like that, or something, but nevertheless. Okay, so I'm going to get you to do this, finish the length of the room that you're doing, turn around and come back again. And then we're going to add something to it, if you'll permit me. By the end of this session, by the way, this is going to crescend into an exercise that is actually quite strong, but I think that you can all have a go at doing. And this is like the foundation of this exercise, really. Is everybody okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're good. Okay. Okay, so we're going to work the hips as well now, yeah? What I'd like you to do is to stand as you did before in Wu Ji. So standing with the feet parallel, shoulder width apart. Shift the weight across into the left side this time and pivot on the hip. I don't know if you can see my foot, because all I can see on my picture is Parkinson's Care and Support, which is covering my foot. But you're rotating, perhaps I can stand on the settee. Don't tell me. In fact, no, what I'll do is this. So imagine my foot's on the ground. You're rotating it so that it's pointing out at 90 degrees, or just under 90 degrees. And then bring the weight across into it. And then make your left foot go forwards about 1.5 foot lengths of your foot, because we're obviously fitting this to the frame of your body. Yeah. Okay. Turn the pelvis so that your navel is pointing in the same direction, or pointing forward, should I say. It's pointing in the same direction as hopefully your left toes are pointing and your left knee. So your right leg, your right foot is turned out 80 degrees to the side, and the right knee is pointing that way as well. So you're opening the right hip. And then the left foot is 1.5 foot lengths forwards, pointing forwards. And your navel is pointing in the same direction. So you've got to get the hips round, you've got to get the pelvis round so that the hips are square to whatever wall it is you're looking at, I guess. Now, what I'd like you to do, hopefully you don't have any weight on the left foot. I didn't mention that. If you do, just bring the weight back into the right foot. So just shift your whole torso back. Try and keep a forwards lean, just a very slight forwards lean from the pelvis. So yeah, I don't want you to be doing this. Let me just turn to the side to show you what I mean. There's just you can see I've got just a subtle lean forwards there in the entirety of my torso, coming from the bum. What I don't want you to do is that, because that's going to be closing off the lower back. Yeah, so just want to have a little subtle lean. And of course, I don't want you doing that either. I want the head back on top of the shoulders as best you can, yeah. All right. And of course, the weight is back in the back foot. So just gently shift the weight forwards. So you're just like sliding your weight forwards into the front foot, keeping, as best you can, the pelvis square to the front. So there's a tendency as you move forwards to turn the pelvis like this. Try and keep it pointing forwards. Very nice. And then shift the weight back again. Now that the weight is back on the right foot, turn the left foot out. So now your feet are doing this, yeah? Turn the left foot out to the side and bring the weight across and into it. Lift the weight out of the back foot and change. So what you've done is you swap sides. I wish I had a camera up here actually that's pointing down. You could see better with what I'm doing. But basically you're just, maybe sideways will help. From here, I open the foot out and then I shift the weight forwards and across and into it and step forwards and through. And then I'm going to shift my weight forwards into that foot, keeping the hips square to the front, and shift my weight backwards into the back foot. So we're just having a go at moving the weight, shifting the weight between legs, keeping the pelvis always square to the front. And in fact, I think we're going to forget that step because it's too hard to explain over this. We're just going to try it on both sides. So first of all, sorry about that, do forgive me. Well, first of all, with your left foot forwards, shifting the weight backwards and forwards, maybe 2 or 3 times, and then swap over so that you've got your right foot forwards and the left foot's turning out, and then shifting the weight backwards and forwards 2 or 3 times. Yeah, that works better. It's the same exercise, we're just missing the twiddly bit out from the middle, which is just a twiddly bit, it's just accessories. Good. Have a go at that a couple of times on each side, and I'm going to do my best to have a look at you. I'll just swap cameras. It doesn't matter if I can't see all of you, just let's see what you're doing. And okay, John, can you bring your head, John Cartwright, can you bring your head more up? Yes, that's better. I think the part of the problem is you've got the computer or whatever device it is you're looking at quite low down. So you're looking down to see if you can just bring the head up and just use the eyes to look down instead. And that'll work quite nicely. Thank you. Great. Good. Okay. So try it on both sides. I'm going to swap cameras and join in with you again. Try it on both sides. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to say a few words for you. I'm going to swap sides so that I'm doing it on both sides. This exercise, if you've got quite a good posture in the torso, as we've talk ourselves through before, then this is actually pumping bin chi out of your body. So this is quite a strong exercise. So there's a couple of warnings for you. Warning number one, wait half an hour before you cuddle anybody, unless it's your worst enemy, because you'll be putting into them what's coming out of you. Yeah. And then, of course, the same applies to you. Don't put your hands anywhere on your body, because it's just coming back into you. Yeah, so like for about 20 minutes after you've finished exercising, just have a cup of tea, sit down, take it easy. You might feel like you haven't been doing much, but actually you just need that time to recuperate a little bit. And whilst you're doing that, don't put the hands on the body. Okay, good. So we'll start off then with the right foot turned out, as we started off to begin with, and the left foot facing forwards. And then whilst we're standing in that position, we're going to be doing this one. So do you remember Tai Chi stance, where we have the arms, and you could start off with the arms out sideways if you want to, so that you've got this sort of line of stretch from the left fingers to the right fingers, and you can imagine someone's pulling your fingers in both directions. So if you prefer guys, then it could be George Clooney and Brad Pitt, maybe, one on each hand. Or if you prefer the ladies, then maybe you've got, I don't know, well, use your imagination. They're pulling you in opposite directions. And then you can change that so that it's a spiral stretch right the way down the arms through to the hands. The hands are sort of sat just in front of the hip joints. The fingers are at 45 degrees, pointing in towards each other. So if you had really long fingernails, they'd be sort of crossing at some point in front of you. And they're also turning up a little bit, they're pointing upwards a little bit. Basically, what you're doing is you're turning the palms away from you slightly. And what we're going to do, we're going to unfurl this spiral stretch that we have around the arms, so that we're stretching first for the little fingers, then the ring fingers, then the middle fingers, then the forefingers, then the thumbs. Let me show you. I'm going to come up close. Yeah, so my hands are higher than they should be. Your hands should be down here by the hips. I'm just bringing them up so you can see. In fact, I'll stand on tiptoe. There we go. So you stretch out like that. The hands, their position moves across as you do so, but also the entire length of the arm is changing its stretch. You're changing the spiral stretch from going round one way to the other way. It's going right the way round to the thumb. So it's coming through the inside of the arm and out the thumb. So that the thumbs, you're trying to point the thumbs sideways. So last week we had the thumbs pointing forwards. This week we're having them pointing sideways. And the fingers, they don't have to be. You don't have to be succeeding at this, but you're trying to point them backwards behind you, so that you're really getting the wrist joint open. Okay, so you get round to there. And then you rotate the arms so that the fingers point into the ground, and at the same time allow them to lift up, but keep the shoulders soft. So don't lift them up with the shoulders, send out sideways through the shoulders, through the thumbs. Then we're going to rotate the arms a little bit so that the palms are facing the floor, but the thumbs are still in line with the forearm. Fingers are pointing behind you. I'll come close again so you can see what I mean. Yeah, so my thumb is in line with my forearm, and my fingers are pointing behind me. Can you see? Yeah. In fact, if I stand like that, that might help. And then, so all the way through this, my weight is on my back foot. I'm now going to shift the weight forwards into the front foot at the same time to stretch open the back across the shoulders so that I'm sending the arms forwards and bringing the arms round. And when I'm fully in my front foot, my thumbs are just in front of my shoulders. Well, they're stretched out miles away from my shoulders, but they're in front of the shoulders rather than like that or like that. They've come right the way around to there. Then you bring the weight back and just bring the hands back down where you started. And then we do it again. This is very strong, so take it steady, yeah? Don't overstretch. So you just stretch it for the little finger, then the ring finger, then the middle finger, then the forefinger, then the thumbs, until the thumbs are pointing sideways. And then just lift the hands up. If you can't see for sure exactly what's going on with my hands, don't worry, just do what you can. Then we rotate the arms so that the palms are pointing towards the ground and shift the weight forwards and bring the arms in front. Very nice. Then you shift the weight back and bring the hands back down to where they started. And again, little fingers, stretching, ring fingers, stretching. Middle fingers, ring fingers, middle fingers, forefingers, thumbs. Yeah? Until the thumbs are pointing sideways. Sinking down, letting the arms come up, keeping the shoulders soft, and then sending forwards. I should get a set of photographs for you, shouldn't I, so you can see all these landmark points. Okay, now we're going to just go back into Wuji, bring the feet parallel, and then swap over so that the left foot is pointing sideways and the right foot is pointing forwards. We do the same thing again 3 times on this side, yeah? So the hands are doing exactly the same thing. They start off just in front of the hip joints, and then we're rotating the hands, stretching the little fingers, then the ring fingers, then the middle fingers, then the forefingers, then the thumbs. And you keep rotating the hands until your stretched thumbs are pointing sideways. The palms are facing the ground, your fingers are trying to point behind you. Then you rotate the arms so that the palms face forwards. And then allow the arms to come up, allow the hands to come up. Sorry, it's a bit complicated, but once you've got it, it's quite good. Then as you shift the weight forwards, just rotate the arms and bring the hands in front of you. So that you're pointing forwards with the thumbs somewhere. Bring the weight back and let the hands just flow in a fluid way back to here. Okay, 2 more to go. Are you ready? Turning the hands, stretching the little fingers, then the ring fingers, then the middle fingers, then the forefingers, then the thumbs. We've lost somebody. Sink down a little bit, rotate the arms, the palms are facing forwards. Keep the shoulders soft and let the hands rise up. Then rotate the arms so the palms are facing the ground. Shift the weight forwards and at the same time, bring the hands in front of you. Shift the weight back again and bring the hands back. One more. Rotating the hands, little fingers, ring fingers, middle fingers, forefingers, thumbs. So I'm naming the digits. Those are the ones that you should be focusing on stretching. So keep rotating the hand until the thumb is pointing sideways and the fingers are pointing behind you. Then rotate the arm and the wrist so that the palms are facing forwards and the fingers are pointing into the ground and the thumbs are trying to point sideways. Sink a little bit and just let the hands rise up. Keep the shoulders soft. Ooh, I'm getting hot. Rotate the arms again so the palms are facing the ground. And then shift the weight forwards, bring the arms around in front of you. And then shift the weight back again and bring the hands back down in front of the body. Bring yourself back to Wuji, so feet parallel, shoulder width apart. Let the arms relax, round the shoulders forward so the arms cross in front of the midline. and shake the hands out. You've all done really well. That's a hard one to do. It's a hard one to explain, especially over a camera. Now, the thing is, you know, there was varying degrees of accuracy in reproduction there. That's absolutely fine. What you were doing was rotating the shoulder joints, stretching open all of the arm joints, shifting the weight backwards and forwards between the feet. It's all good stuff. We'll practice it though, yeah, over the weeks. We'll come back to that one. So again, make sure you pay some attention to the feet because they're carrying your weight, yeah. So stretching from the bum through to the heel, lifting the toes up, and then jiggle. Jiggle out of the hip joint, up and down. Keeping that stretch. If you've got a good stretch, you should feel it a little bit vibrating in the back of the knee. And then the same on the other side. Is everybody okay? Yeah. I think we're gonna have a democratic vote on this. I don't know if there's an undemocratic vote, but we're gonna have a democratic vote. It's 3 o'clock. I'm inclined to do another exercise, but I don't want to push anybody. So I think you've done actually a lot of stuff here, even though we haven't really covered any Tai Chi form. That exercise covers a lot of the basics of Tai Chi form, and it's working. I think you need to work. So, would you like to do a closing exercise, or would you prefer to have a sip of drink and maybe a chat and Q&A, or maybe not? What do you think? So, hands up for another exercise. 1, 2. Hands up for some Q&A and a chat. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's do that then. I'll just switch over to the camera.